Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And for the past 44 weeks, we have been picking powerful words, a different powerful word each week, and just looking at it in different perspectives. Sometimes we're looking at it in an experience that possibly I'm having in the moment. Maybe it's a past experience of mine. Maybe it's a childhood story. Maybe it's a story about an adventure that I was on. Sometimes, quite often, it's in that experience of others and that movement that they're making that allows me to make a little bit of movement myself. And that is that mentorship, that stewardship of right creating the best human being we possibly can. So going back to our conversation yesterday, we were talking a little bit about being the spectator and being the participant and being the student and being the teacher. There's a season for all of that. And, in my lessons today, and actually, it's just not taking insights from others, it's not just taking the knowledge and applying it to my life. It is in that consideration that I am a human being, that I am creating the best human being I possibly can. And I have to take into consideration the seasons of that human, right? Just like uh, we go through those monthlies, we go through that midlife crisis, we go through menopause, right? We start aging and right, there are seasons for all of these aspects of ourselves. And growing up, right, my, I would have to say my own fault because, being the smarty pants that I am, thinking that I do pay attention. A lot of good paying attention did me when it came to creating that best human being I possibly could, right? It helped me in my hypervigilance. It helped me in paying attention for my own safety. But that's all it did for me. It kept me boxed. It kept me limited in what I wanted to do and stepping outside of myself and drumming up that courage and that bravery, recognizing that, Cindy mattered, and I would think deep down inside of me something did because, growing up, I always had this one word, despite. It's a powerful, it is. It's a very powerful word, but it's a very powerful word, but it's not a very positive word, right? Because despite is showing that you are making that movement despite the roadblocks, the failures, the people who are throwing the wrenches in the engine and in your path so that you can't make that little bit of, I don't know, that consideration of creating the best human being you possibly can. You don't even recognize that you have that right. And, growing up and understanding this word, despite that I was going to take my piece of the pie, right? I have to give that little kid credit. I was going to say, I have to give myself credit. I do have to give myself credit. I have to give myself credit consistently and constantly. And, right, in the moments we sometimes don't recognize that we're not doing that for ourselves, that we're not being our best cheerleaders, right? That all we're doing is rah, 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 not good enough, not working hard enough, right? Not serving more, right? And we understand that, we can't really serve anybody else until our cups are full, until we're feeling good about ourselves. So, going back to this idea, there's a season for everything. I got a taste of that a little bit today. It was a dark, dreary, rainy day, and I'm starting my work week in that job that puts the roof over my head, right? But I wanted to add to my own plate. I wanted to add to my life because I do matter. I recognize that, and because sometimes the things that we've got to do are not always joyous and fun, right? We look for the smiles, we whistle while we work, we look for those moments and those small little changes in the weather that might brighten us up or encourage us to move on when we're all pooped and just don't know if we can take one more step. That if we can find that moment for ourselves, if we can find that season for this time of year, for me it's usually pretty busy, right? I am moving and taking up extra hours, taking in the lessons, applying to the gear for my brand. I'm working on the itinerary for my big trip coming up in September, and you might say, well, you got lots of time. But in that unpreparedness, you add stress to your life. You add stress to the human being. You put the human in a position where, in the last minute, they're, oh my goodness, I haven't got this done, or I don't have enough money, or what was I thinking? And right? So the idea is to take as much of that burden and that stress, and at the same time it's very, very enjoyable process. And I'm planning my trip, right? So what I was doing today is I was looking for camping spots in the different provincial parks along the route that I plan to take. I don't have the specific dates and how long I want to stay at each campsite. I'm understanding I've got a couple of weeks to make the most amazing vacation for myself as I possibly can, right? Understanding that I'm going to be the evidence in accomplishing that. And if I were to rush that all in the past few days just before I leave, what kind of a job am I going to do in that, right? And what kind of my state am I going to be when I finally get in that vehicle and hit that road? It's going to be amazing because of that. Oh, okay, it's all over. What happens, happens, right? And in my holidays and in that big event that I plan for myself, that I give to myself, that's a reward. That's a reward for myself. That's a reward whether I get anything accomplished in that year or not. That's the reward for just being me, right? That's the reward and the recognition that I matter, right? Of course I get things accomplished, right? That's just the way Cindy rolls, right? And it's the way I'm going to continue to roll, but because I want that reward to reward, right? So there's content ideas that need to be drummed out. I haven't even looked at that yet, but because I've started the process now, 3 or 4 months before I leave, right? I have 3 or 4 months in there. That's why they call it an itinerary. It's kind of like a schedule. It helps to keep you on track. It helps to keep you on budget, and it also gives you in that season little sites where you can see where there's an opening that maybe you can add another adventure in, that you could add a little bit more spectacular to the plate, knowing that you are setting out to make that reward for yourself, reward others. And I will reward it in the physical, in those conversations, in those people that I bump into, in that connection that I have with myself, because for me, mainly this vacation is to spend that time with myself in contemplation, in appreciating, and in gratitude for this amazing life that quite possibly might have been dictated by others, right? And not created by myself, for myself, as a gift, right? For myself, but also at the same time, right? In that service and understanding, and in taking those lessons and understanding, right? To let that reward that it's going to offer up all kinds of content for a couple of months, hopefully a couple of months after that trip, that trip is going to offer up that energy and that evidence for myself that, oh my goodness, look what I can create with that. And if you've been hanging out with me for any length of time, I hope that you recognize that each September when I go on this holiday that I've created with the small budget on this little part-time job in a thrift store that I work with, that, right, that I'm doing it. And if I can do it, right, anybody, and it doesn't matter where you live, right, in that drummer girl, drummer boy kind of attitude, we know how to make the cabbage soup, stone soup, right, that ended up being a magnificent cabbage soup. If you don't know the story of stone soup, it's an amazing story. I should tell it again at some point because it offers up so many lessons in what we can create when we think we have nothing, the possibilities that we can, right, achieve as a, right, as a human bumbling along, not recognizing all the gifts that are out in the world. And yet, right, things happen across our paths. And in those moments, if we're paying attention, right, in that being a spectator, and I pulled away from that a little bit, but not really, right? Because I am paying attention to my needs. I'm paying attention because I know how the state of my well-being goes when I leave things to the last minute, right? When I say, oh, I don't have to pay the bills this month, I want that outfit, right? We'll take care of this bill next month. And then have the engine drop out of the car and you got to pay for a new engine. I'm just using this as an example. You need to put a new engine in the car and your bills have to go another month, right? So if we can always, right, contribute and stay ahead of the game, right, at the very least, be at that point where you're not falling behind, where you don't have a whole list of things that you haven't accomplished, that you have to accomplish. And if you don't get them accomplished, you're going to put yourself in a hairy, scary, or you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to have that magnificence that you want and dream and desire for yourself. And when we go back to goals, right? Right? It's in paying attention to the opportunities. It's about paying attention, right? In the little hiccups along the way that are only in the moment, right? Not even a thought because they haven't happened. But if you forward think about a little bit, like your tires are going bald, right? You're going on a long trip. Well, you better have some good tires. So we got to work that into the budget, a set of new tires for the car, right? So it's a matter of creating, but creating in a way that, right, we're thinking a little bit, we're paying attention to the details. And these are things that we learn as a spectator, just in our everyday, day to day, in those little failures that we have, right? In not paying the bill this month and realizing next month, oh my goodness, I really screwed myself last month when I had that money and, right, I decided I needed that outfit instead, right? Or those new pair of Nikes or whatever it is, that we have to make sure that we're taking care of those needs, those right? Those well-being, right? Needs, because we need those. That will make it so that we can whistle while we work, that we can apply ourselves without thinking in the background and being distracted by all those things that we didn't pay attention to, right? So sometimes in being a spectator, you're still making that movement. You have to. That's why I put spectator and participant together, right? I put them together because well, they don't really work without each other, right? And it is, right? How fast do you think of these ideas, and you have to just get on it right away, because if you let it slide, if you let it fade into the background, that's when it can rear up and bite us in the butt, stop us from giving that reward for ourselves, let alone letting that reward. So today I was looking at campsites and campgrounds along my route, and I was making some great headway until I got to the Canadian and American border on the way back, and I went, "Oh my goodness, I can't do this campground because I'm entering the states in the wrong spot. I have to go more east." So tomorrow or tonight when I get home, I will, right, be doing a little bit of course correcting in that itinerary, because, right, July, I'm not going till September, but in July, I want to make sure that those campgrounds are all taken care of. They are picked, right? And to the best of my ability, and they have photographs and stuff, and what's by the lake and what's covering the wind, right? And different things for different needs that I might have in well, like I said, I want to get as much mileage done as I can. I want to see if I can get to my first destination in a couple of days, but at the same time, I want to spend some time in some provincial parks along the way, and maybe possibly pick some parks I have never been to, and losing track there, because I was thinking, what's that got to do with being a spectator? Well, I'm paying attention to myself. I'm paying attention to this job and this process that I'm in right now. I'm paying attention to the smile that it's bringing into my face, and it's keeping me on track. It's really kind of fun. It's a very busy time in my life, and whether it's busy in the season in the job that puts the roof over my head, right? In the itinerary for this trip, we're working on this deck of 54 cards. We've been working on that. I have other plans on the go. I have my sheet here of things that I wanted to accomplish this year. And all of that, right? Because it's in seasons, it almost all ends and starts over again after that trip that I come back in September. So when I come back, right, I'm going to be, oh my goodness, that was so magnificent. And I'm back here, and oh, I'm back to it, and I got to start all over again. If I can get ahead of that, even before I go on my trip, then I won't have that crash, right? That, right? You achieve your goals. And when you achieve your goals, there's always a little bit. But if that crash is just a little bit because you've already got something else on the go, right? It's not a crash all the way down and then it's another climb up. It's maybe just a little, right? A little jump down to a ledge and then right back up again. And that's the plan for me. Man, we're at 25 after. I've got 10 more. I got 10 more minutes before I have to take off and start my work week. It's a dark, dreary, rainy day. Just those kind of days that I love to sit at home and piddle around and take in lessons and work on my trip, right? But I do have responsibilities. These are the allowances that make it possible so I can be doing this. It takes the load off. It makes it so that I don't have to worry about that bill next month. I don't have to worry about the roof over my head. I can go about my plans, right? Knowing that that is taken care of, right? It's an amazing life that I'm super grateful to have gotten some. You guys hear, I listen to my live shows and I hear this word lessons, constant. And if there was another way that I could express that word without, right? Because lessons it sounds very worky. It sounds very, right? Effort, like lots of effort, the lessons. But not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. I created this brand, and I created this brand with the idea that not always am I going to be 62. At some point I'm going to be 82, right? 102. And in this moment, I have no idea physically, right? I am grateful for my great health. I am so grateful for that. But I can't expect that it's going to go on forever and ever. So I want to make sure whatever that rewards, right? That I'll be able to physically, emotionally, mentally, and financially, right? Be able to do it. And that's what I'm grateful for, because in this moment, my life allows me to make that kind of movement, right? To be able to consider where I'm going to be, right? Next year or 5 years or maybe even 20 years down the road. But understanding that this moment is just as important, if not more important, because I'm not going to get there unless I'm right here, right now, and smiling while I'm doing it, right? And these are all lessons that I picked up along the way, and that's the truth. And I think, for the most part, we all should be in those consistently, because that's where the movement lies, right? That's our evolution. That's that movement forward. And as long as we're moving and contributing, I don't know, as far as I know, you can't go wrong with that. In the evidence in my own life, and in the evidence in the lives of the people that I am taking lessons from, right? That's the evidence, right? That's what keeps me going. And that's what makes it so that I am more solidified in my own movement, my own ideas, and my own contribution to that life, to that creation of the best human being that I can be. Okay, you guys, that's my pitch here. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.